a top global marketing podcast listened to in more than 100 countries, live streamed on social media, and broadcast on DBTV. Christoph Trapp chats with industry leaders to help your company tell better business stories. Here's today's episode.
Episode 684, my friends. We're going to be talking about trust today. And now, while we're not a news show, today is actually kind of a newsy topic because, believe it or not, the FTC just decided that online reviews now should be illegal. Crazy that is just now a thing. So many crazy reviews out there. How do we know how to trust brands? How do we know what's real and what's not? Allyson Havener, she works over at TrustRadius. We can throw up that URL at the bottom here. And they actually put out a report on what goes into consumer trust. I would say pretty split, to be honest. It's like the political field. 50% do it, 50% don't, or something like that. There was a lot of 50-50. But she can give us the details because she's the expert on consumer trust, building trust, and how do we do it? And how do fake reviews play into this whole thing? Allyson, welcome.
Hi. Good to see you. How's it going?
Blow it up. Nice to see you. So, tell me about this whole consumer trust thing. And it's kind of interesting. Am I just like, why are fake reviews just now becoming something that shouldn't happen? I mean, is it just like, shouldn't that have happened like 10 years ago, maybe?
I think how influential reviews are across B2C and B2B. And what people are starting to realize is how important that kind of peer-to-peer information and that exchange is. And I am way more likely to listen to my peers than any kind of marketing material, whether that's coming from a consumer brand or a B2B brand. And so I think the influence of reviews is why people are really starting to pay attention these days, and why you see kind of the FTC starting to come in and starting to regulate, which is great. I think from our point of view at Trust Radius, we've always really, really focused on the authenticity, vetted reviews on our site. We actually reject 60% of the reviews that are submitted to Trust Radius because of fraud, lack of insightful information, and maybe it's written by AI. So this has always kind of been really core to our business model and our philosophy when it comes to kind of that information exchange between peers.
60%, that is just a crazy high number. Now, tell me about that a little bit. How do you even decide what to reject and what you don't reject? I mean, I remember back in the day when blogs had comments on them and people would comment, great post, and it was obviously spam, didn't add anything. Or if I leave a review and I'm like, oh, I like the food. Like, what does that even add, right? Doesn't tell them what kind of food I like, doesn't tell them what I actually ate, doesn't tell them anything, right? Or I like this software product or whatever. But I got to give some details. So how do you decide? And of course, me just not going very deep is completely different than me just making up stuff, right? Or saying this is a good product when I actually think it's a crap product. But how do you talk about that? How do you decide what to reject and what not?
So there's a few factors that go into it. So we have a review moderation team that actually rolls up into my team, and we go under kind of few steps. So one is the reviewer themselves. We go on LinkedIn mostly because we're working in the B2B kind of tech space and people leaving reviews on different products in the B2B space. And so we can go to LinkedIn, we can look at their job history, we can verify that. And that's pretty extensive considering that that's a human going in and verifying their LinkedIn. And there's tons of fake LinkedIn profiles out there. So we actually have worked with LinkedIn to build kind of a verification process because they are also looking for fake profiles as well. And so we've partnered with them to, one, help them identify fake profiles and vice versa. So it starts with the actual reviewer. Then we look at the content. It's very easy to see fraudulent reviews. I'm just doing this to get, whatever the incentive is, that I would like that gift card, or, it's like pure gibberish, or, so those are easy to spot. And so our review moderation team finds those, rejects those, etc. The next thing is that you can tell when you're looking at, we have a lot of detection around AI. And so if it's AI written, we also have our review moderation has tools for that. And then also the lack of content, kind of to your point where it's like, I like this product, I've used this product. There's a lot of kind of easy indicators that people have not either used it, or again, since we have such strict and high standards when it comes to reviews, there has to be at least 2 to 3 key insights from the review. Ours are also in the B2B space. We kind of specialize in more of that long form review. So if we can see the timing, so let's say we know on average it takes people around 15, 18 minutes to fill out a review submission from TrustRadius. So if we look and they've done it under 2 minutes, 4 minutes, whatever, under kind of like that threshold, we know that it's already suspicious. So our team has kind of built in these kind of check-in measures for the quality of the review, the authenticity of the review, but it really starts with the reviewer and understanding, like, would this even be a person that has the experience, the professional experience to write the review in the first place?
When I think about like Google, I give reviews to like everybody. And
Yeah.
honestly, like Google reviews, it's kind of crazy because I look up something and then I've never even gone to the place. I just Googled it one time and it says, "Would you like to review this place?" And I'm like,
Mhm.
"No, I haven't even gone there. Like, what would I even say?" But I give reviews all the time for the places I've actually gone, or like, a business I've worked with, or like, we're moving. So I had a bunch of contractors come by and they're all over the place. They're from 1 star to 5 stars. I give my opinion, but you could actually look at my reviews and you could be like, I get his voice. He's to the
Mhm.
point. He tells it how he sees it, blah, blah, blah. So is that also part of it, to look at who the reviewers are and what their history is?
Yes, because we have repeat reviewers, right? And people that come and you use multiple products. Think about like the tech stack, like a marketer like me would use, or somebody in IT or security. Their tech stacks are huge. So we have people that come, they have a profile. We track everything that they're doing on Trust Radius in terms of leaving a review. So if somebody is already verified, um, and they're already reviewing stuff kind of in that technology category, that makes it a lot easier for us to verify the review. And we know that they're a trusted user. So we definitely are looking at kind of the profile of the person, and, the multiple reviews that they leave on Trust Radius as well. And so that's a big factor. And people, one thing that we've also worked with LinkedIn on is people can share now their review on Trust Radius, which I think is really interesting, because that shows, if you go and you review something, and let's even take it to the B2C space, and you're leaving a review, people will start, they follow you like on Yelp, and they're like, great, this person's kind of a foodie, I want to understand what restaurants they're going to. You see people kind of make this almost like an influencer type of uh, position, because of the reviews that they're leaving and how in depth they are and insightful they are. And they're starting to do that in the B2B world as well. And you can show your expertise. If I'm going on to Trust Radius and I leave a review for cybersecurity and it's really insightful, and I show that I'm an expert in this type of technology, and I post that on LinkedIn, like, hey, check out my review. That's really interesting. And that adds not only credibility to obviously them leaving it on Trust Radius, but themselves and their experience. So we also really encourage people that like to leave reviews and want to share their insight. And that helps bolster their kind of expertise in that space and in their industry.
How do you feel about companies responding? I mean, I have mixed feelings on that because sometimes when companies respond, they respond from the PR perspective sometimes, right? They're like, "Oh, we're
Mhm.
so sorry, blah blah blah," and I want to say, "Well, when I called customer support, they didn't sound very sorry at all. You just say that, whatever." And then sometimes they try to explain something away, right? And I was like, "Well, it's not my problem. Your website doesn't load because you got 12,000 pop-ups and a chat bot that doesn't know what I'm saying when I speak very natural English. Do you know what I mean?" Um, but how do you feel about that when companies respond and let's say they do? What are the best practices when it comes to that?
We really encourage vendors to respond. I think that when people are taking the time, and I'll kind of back up a little bit. So the FTC is actually, you have to identify when a review is incentivized. And most reviews especially in the B2B space are incentivized. Now people are like, "Oh, well, you're just cherry picking these people." But it actually gets people from that are kind of in the middle ground that are going to provide the most insight. Because if I'm really happy with the product, I want to give it a 5-star review. I'm going on there, I'm like, this is great. Okay, that's great. You had a great experience. And then there's the detractors where the people are like, 1 star, this was like the worst experience with the product ever in my life. And so you kind of get these like polar opposites. And actually incentives brings in the middle ground because maybe I'm like not like over the moon with this product, but it works, it's solved for my use cases. I implemented it, I'm gonna keep it. It's not necessarily 5 stars, and it's not necessarily 1 star, but it's those 3-star reviews. And what we see on our site is that most buyers go straight for the 3-star reviews because those are usually the most insightful and they're not this like, hey, big promoter of it, and they're not a big detractor. So incentives are actually like really, really important. Now, we see a lot of companies that actually love to cherry pick so they get those 5-star reviews. However, obviously, you're going to get people that are going to give you those 1-star reviews. And so we really encourage people to respond to any review that they want. But especially if you're people are like really scared of those negative reviews. But I actually think, kind of to your point, if you're kind of coming in with a PR type answer that isn't giving a solution or an explanation or a way to come to some kind of resolution, people can read through that, and people are very smart, they're very perceptive, and they understand that. And so our best practice is how are you addressing their concern? How are you kind of and also there shouldn't be a back and forth, right, on the review. Once you respond, it's like you should be responding in a way that again is resolving the issue or bringing that offline. But I think it just shows a level of commitment to customer satisfaction, and it also shows that you're listening. Because at the end of the day, people just want to be heard, whether they're complaining about X, Y, and Z, whatever it may be, and it might not even be your fault. Kind of to your example about website loading, maybe there's so many other factors that go into that's not just your product. But I think it's consumers and in the B2B world, right? We want a level of we're heard, and we want a level of service to kind of get to some resolve. So we really, really encourage people to reply, but then reply in a way that takes it offline, and you can take that to your product people, you can take that to your customer success team, and how do you kind of implement the changes and the feedback that you're getting from the reviews and make changes internally. So I think it's really important, one, to like again try to get the full spectrum of reviewers or people that have used your product, not just the people that are going to be those like, in really high ENPS scores, or, you're going to get the detractors naturally, but try to find the middle ground and always respond to reviews that are, that 1-star review. And I think that's really helpful for people, and it makes it a little less scary of getting those negative reviews.
1 star, 5 star, or whatever, it's kind of interesting too because my 1 star might be very different from your 1 star, right?
Yes.
Maybe you don't even give people a 1 star, or like or 4 is your default or whatever. There was actually somebody on the show, and I do not remember who it was. My apologies if you were listening or watching, as they talk about if you only have 5-star reviews, that is actually a problem
Yes.
because somebody will not like your product, right? End of story. So you want to have that mix. Now let's talk about incentivizing people though. So I've done probably, I don't know, 1,200 videos on Amazon on my Amazon storefront. If you guys want to check it out, Christoph Trapp on Amazon, just Google that, you'll find it. And some of those are just things I use, right? The Yeti mic, I'll use whether Yeti ever talks to me or not. But then there's some products, they reach out, they want me to do a video, they want me to review it. And then I say, well, here's the fee to do that for my time. And then some of them will say, well, we're going to send you a free product. And I'm like, but I don't even know you. Like, that's not actually an incentive for me, because depending how bad or how good or how much time it takes to actually get it to work, like, you're kind of wasting my time. So, like, what's an incentive? Like, how do we define incentives? Do you know what I mean? Like, especially when it comes to the FTC.
So when you think about incentives, I think it's all about kind of around the positioning of it. And we really see it as a thank you for someone's time. Like I said, filling out a review on TrustRadius takes 15 to 18 minutes on average. That's a long time. That's asking a lot of people, and kinda to your point, what's really in it for me? And so I think there's 2 reasons for incentives. It's finding the people that are the middle ground that are gonna give you kind of the deepest insights into the actual review and using the product that would have never otherwise probably left a review because they're not that big promoter and they're not a big detractor, right? And then I think the other thing is it's clearly a payment for somebody's time. Everybody is lacking time these days, and asking somebody for 15 minutes it can be 15 minutes of somebody's time can be very expensive. And so we really position it, and we have our vendors position it really as a thank you for giving us a review. And a lot of our vendors, if you think about kind of, especially in the B2B space, we're constantly thinking about customer advocacy and how do we infuse customer voice into whatever we're doing. And again, going back to kind of our first topic around how influential peer-to-peer information is, like that is a big part of your strategy when it comes to your go to market. Like you need your customers talking about you and on the record. And reviews are kind of the one of the easiest ways and the lowest barrier to entry is to, they don't have, they can do it on their own time. They can, and they don't need to kind of do any exchange. There's not a lot of back and forth. And so I think reviews, in a sense, and like the incentive is one, hey, let's get these people, let's, talk to our customers who's actually going to leave us a review. And then, okay, great. Based on the review, if they want to be a reference, et cetera, like how do we get them to do other things with us and really highlight the work that they're doing with us. So I think, when it comes to incentives, I think it's really about how you position it. And one is let's get our customers on the record and do that at scale and give them some kind of thank you for their time. And that really, bolsters our kind of whole customer advocacy program.
It's just so interesting. 15 to 18 minutes. I mean, you really have to like or not like a product. So finding that middle ground certainly can be a challenge. What else did you find on the current state of trust when it comes to, especially in B2B?
So, I think it's this double-edged sword when it comes to trust because there's such a lack of trust right now. In kind of that the interesting thing about our report, this is our 8th year that we've released this report. It's called the B2B Buying Disconnect. And essentially we study the disconnect between the way buyers want to buy and the way vendors go to market. And what you've seen is a few things is one is there's more millennials. So it's like 70% of the buying power out there in B2B are millennials. And so millennials have grown up in social world, they've grown up digitally native, and a lot of what goes down in B2C, they're transcending into B2B. So they want to self-serve a bunch of different product information. They want to talk to their peers. They don't want to talk to a salesperson until they're ready. They're super skeptical. And people, like what's going on in technology right now, people are super risk adverse. And so it's created this kind of huge lack of trust, right? And if you also think in the technology space, there's just an oversaturation of technology out there. And so people don't know what, like, the marketing messages are too similar. There's too much of the same out there. And it's really hard to differentiate. And so, while there's this huge lack of trust, there's this huge need for trust. And people say, when we were looking at the data, a lot of tech buyers, the number one thing that was a factor in their decision making is that they trusted the brand. They knew the brand and they also heard about it from their peers. And I think that's really, really difficult to accomplish, especially if you're kind of like newer at your startup, you're kind of getting into the market. So I think the state of trust right now is that there's a huge deficit, and a huge need. And now, as a vendor and in the technology space, if you think about that, you're like, great, okay, how do I build trust? Like, how do I start that now? How is that part of my strategy? How is that part of my brand? And I think the vendors out there that are really going to build that trust with their buyer and be someone that they really want to align themselves to. They'll put their job on the line to bring in that new technology. Those are going to be the winners, and so you really have to start laying that foundation down now, to start building trust. And again, be that brand that people really want to align their careers to.
I mean, I'm just going to whine here for a second, but I will never ever. I mean, I got money to spend too, my friends, but I'm never ever in the buying group. I got the now. So first, on the, it's the female leaders, right, that are now buying everything. So I'm not in that group. Then we got the millennials. How about me? Will anybody sell me? I'm totally kidding. Do not DM me about whatever. But I'm just saying, like my group of people, like the bald white guy, Gen X barely, never ever comes up for anything. But that's okay. We're still talking about it. Oh my goodness. I don't even know all the different places we can go with this. You know what's interesting too, when you talk about building that trust, I've had companies, and this is actually a technology company, and they have done such a great job of building trust publicly. And then I tried their product and it
Mm.
was horrible. And like the entire trust that they've built in their marketing just went down the drain, right? So you kind of have to have that right mix too. Like marketing can't promise one thing and then the product is going to fail the second you trial it. So how do you kind of make sure everything aligns and everything works well together?
So brand marketing is just one piece of the pie, right? Brand is every representation of your company out in the market that is touching your customer. And so when you think about it at the end of the day, is if you're not making your customers successful and your product isn't working to the extent that you've marketed it, then that is a huge issue and that is not building brand trust. So kind of to your point, it's not just marketing's job to build brand trust, it's the product's job, it's your sales team, it's your customer success team, it's your engineers, like everyone builds customer trust and that brand trust from every touch point kind of across the buyer and then customer journey. And what we also found in our report is when you look at the resources buyers use, one of the top resources that they indicated was their own experience, so my own prior experience. Like that in itself should, like, you need to make your customer successful, because if, to your point, you're like, great, this brand must be awesome, this technology must be awesome, you use it, oh my god, it was the worst, it didn't solve my use cases, it was terrible to implement, um, you'll never buy that again. And when your peers ask you, you're not going to be recommending that brand. And that is a huge issue when it comes to growth. Like you are not going to be able to make the buyer shortlist. And if you don't make that buyer shortlist, you're never going to win those deals. And so when it really comes to buyer trust, it's thinking about all of those touch points and making sure that it's a positive experience. So at the end of the day, you're driving value for your customers, because your customer is going to go and they're going to find another job and hopefully get promoted. And then they're going to take you along with them.
Fantastic. Elson, great to see you. Thank you for being such a trustworthy source for this content. TrustRadius.com. Check it out to see who you can trust and who you cannot. Elson, nice to see you, and we're out.
Thanks for tuning in. Please rate and review the Business Storytelling Show on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.